Okay, we are now live. All I'm showing is my screen, so I'm going to bring up paint and draw stuff in it till you get a video going.
Well, we're on my stream right now.
Okay,
If you would just join the call.
I'm in the call. Can you hear me?
If you would join the Google Hangout call.
Oh, okay. I am sorry. Give me 1 second.
All right, that might not have been clear. As usual, we're plagued by tech issues. Gee, I'm using that A+, Linux Plus, and Security Plus certification well.
The one hangout I got is I'm only one in there. Can you send me a new link?
Yeah, Tria, I think this is your Hangout. Can you send her a link? Or is this mine? Yeah, I think it's yours, Tria.
No, I joined you.
I think it was Alanis's.
And I closed it. I thought.
You know what? I'm just sending the link, okay? All you have to do is copy and paste the top, so I will send it. Give me a second. Here, sweetheart.
All right.
Send it in Twitter.
I am so glad that I didn't decide to do the afternoon session today.
If you're watching this on my channel, I'm going to bring up the Restream chat now, so I can be able to see there. If you donate to us for $5 or more, I have some Irish cream here. I will take a drink from it.
Did you send
Not directly from the bottle, because that would just be weird. But
Traytail, did you send me the link?
I did at Discord.
Oh, in Discord.
And once again, we're still working out tech issues. Yeah, send her the link on Twitter.
Sorry.
It's probably where she's looking.
I'll send it on Twitter too, sweetheart. I'm sorry.
Oh, I got it. I got it from Discord.
We should be able to do this from Discord, and Discord works better than Google Hangouts. So,
hello, y'all should be able to hear me now, and it's also streaming on my channel now. Hooray!
All right. If
okay,
you do,
I'm hearing Atheist T Girl twice. Atheist T Girl twice.
You might want to mute your.
Yeah. Okay, y'all should only be hearing me once now.
You too, Tria?
Again?
Can you only hear me once?
You can only hear me once because I'm only going through Discord. By the way, I do have a Discord server which you can join. I mean, I really do have a Patreon, but who cares? And now let's get into the topic, the Meadows Massacre. All right, I expected someone else to join in there.
Traytail, can you?
Hello, Linda Nielsen.
Hi.
Have we muted everyone?
We can hear everyone now, I think.
Atheist T-Girl, I don't think you've muted your Google Hangout call.
I did mute my Hangout call. Y'all still hear me multiple times?
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm not hearing anyone complain about echo in my chat. So now, let's talk about the Meadows Massacre. Basically, there is some historical context that needs to be understood. The Mormons in the 1850s were very anti-government, and for good reason. Perhaps one incident mentioned in the book was something where one Mormon child... All right, Alanis, I think you still need to mute your microphone on your Google call. Or maybe... I shouldn't be getting an echo, or am I?
It's at the bottom in the middle, or at the bottom, it's kind of towards the...
All right, that should be better. Is that better, Linda Nielsen? Are we still echoing?
All right.
Thanks for stopping by the way. And like I said, I will take shots. I will do some Irish cream shots for a $5 donation, because we need to subscribe to Zoom, so this stops happening. All right. Now, what I was about to mention was an event called the Haun's Mill Massacre by the Mormons. Whether you'd like to call it a massacre is debatable, but it happened after Governor Lilburn Boggs in Missouri issued what is known as the Mormon Extermination Order, which made it legal to kill Mormons in Missouri until 1870. During the Haun's Mill Massacre, only one child was killed, but it was a pretty cold-blooded death, and the person responsible, a member of the Missouri militia, said, "If you don't kill maggots, they'll make lice." Now, after Missouri, the Mormons went to Nauvoo, where... Yes, Nauvoo.
No.
Where the Trade Federation destroyed the Nauvoo Expositor. No. And one of the reasons why the Missouri government was so eager to get rid of the Mormons was because the Mormons started to vote in bloc and Joseph Smith was having his own militia. Now, this anti-government rhetoric would be ramped up after Joseph Smith's death, when Brigham Young took over, and he basically wanted to go to a place where the US government wasn't, which is why the Mormons went to Utah. What happened after that is the Mormons basically, not the Mormons, the US basically got in the US-Mexico War, and Utah was ceded as part of the Treaty of Guadalupe. So Utah became a US territory, much to the annoyance of Brigham Young. Now, Brigham Young amped up anti-US sentiment for years before this event happened. In fact, there was an event called the Utah War, which this was actually a part of, but if it weren't for this incident, the Utah War would have been largely bloodless. It would have been as big of a deal as the Pennsylvania-Connecticut War, which resulted in 4 deaths and the founding of Wilkes-Barre. But instead, what Brigham Young did was encourage a siege mentality. He formed Mormon militias. He made sure they were armed. And he was very much Brigham Young was a fire and brimstone preacher before he joined the church. And he was still very much after, even though the Mormons aren't fire and brimstone. And one of the things he taught was the doctrine of blood atonement, which actually started with Joseph Smith, with the idea that certain sins can only be atoned for by the shedding of the blood of the sinner, and the sinner would be grateful if you did it for them, because it allowed them not to go to outer darkness as an apostate. Because this was a doctrine that started after Joseph Smith got upset about people leaving the church. And that was in part because people were finding out polygamy, some of Joseph's shadier dealings. I'm sorry, Tria, do you remember what it was called, what he tried to do in Kirtland, Ohio with his bank?
No, but I remember that he called it a non-bank. Like, it was a bank, but he tried to call it a non-bank so that, like, he could get away with it legally, or at least try to.
Yeah, but
basically he was taking as much money as he could get, and then, like, hoarding it for himself, and then claiming that God... Oh, gosh, what was that principle called? I can't remember, but it was basically like, you give 100% to me, and then I give you what I think you need back.
Well, according to my roommate, that would be called communism.
No, it wasn't communism.
Well, no, there's some principle.
There was a
called
principle behind it.
It was,
but I do think that is what they called the people involved. But that's not what the principle was.
I wanted to think it was called the New Order, but I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, that is not it. Hold on, I'm gonna go look it up. Y'all keep talking.
All right. The point is, the bank collapsed in the Panic of 1837. And that's one of the reasons why Joseph Smith had to flee to Missouri, out of many, from Kirtland. Now, in Kirtland, Joseph Smith declared that that's where the Garden of Eden is, and you all know we were going there, even though we've mentioned it before. And he started a militia. Now, he wasn't allowed to do this. And of course, if you have a militia that's outside the control of the government, especially one where you have fanatical followers, and keep in mind, this isn't the modern age where any militia like what Joseph Smith had would be put down quickly by the US military. The US militia, not the US militia, the Mormon militia was a threat on the frontiers of Missouri. It was designed to be one, and the Mormons just said, well, we need it because of persecution, you're not going to protect us. But when they started voting in bloc, Governor Lilburn Boggs started to fear that they were going to try to take over their state, especially with some of the rhetoric that Joseph Smith was espousing, like, this is where Zion will be built up. And I'm sure Tria has been told, Zion is in Missouri, just like I was, so.
Mm-hmm. I was also told that the Garden of Eden was there.
Oh, Salt Lake City's in New Jerusalem.
Yeah. That Utah was our home for now, but eventually everything would be fine and dandy, and they'd be able to move back to Missouri, and the Garden of Eden on Earth would be formed back in Missouri.
And if we go back to what we said during the last episode, and I apologize, I have hypothyroidism. I'm just at the age where you start collecting medical issues, and that happens to be one of them, along with EDS. And I've always had autism as well, so I don't necessarily control my body heat well, and it is hot where I am. So there is a fan running, but thanks for letting me know. I've gone over to the quieter fan. Well, Linda Nielsen, in the chat,
yeah, Linda and Morton are friends of mine, and I probably just messed up Morton's name again.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
He told me the correct pronunciation, and I pronounce it every other way except the one he told me.
And basically, Joseph Smith destroyed the expositor in Nauvoo, which got him put up on treason charges, which were eventually dropped. But that's where he was basically killed by a mob. And then it only ever had one edition.
Yeah.
We will do a separate episode on the Nauvoo Expositor probably, but I don't want to necessarily. I think with a name like Dwindling in Disbelief, we don't have to limit ourselves to Mormonism. It's just that's what we've been doing.
No, I'd like to expand, but yeah. But yeah, just basically a whole bunch of the Joseph Smith did a whole bunch of things that made people angry, and instead of doing better, it basically got more and more escalated to where they tried to isolate themselves because they wanted to be able to do whatever the hell they wanted to do, and and everybody around them was like, no, what you're doing is bad.
And a lot of it...
Sorry,
go ahead.
So Brigham Young just took that to a whole nother level. Don't get me wrong, Joseph Smith started it, but Brigham just took what happened to Joseph Smith and just used it as an excuse to go and be his bloodthirsty self. Because honestly, that's what he wanted.
Yeah. But basically, Brigham Young took over and really ramped up the sentiment. Someone who gets caught up in this is a guy named John Doyle Lee, who was the adopted son of Brigham Young. And his name will appear a lot in what we're going to talk about today. John Doyle Lee essentially... Sorry, go ahead. Yep. Then they got kicked out of Nauvoo after the expositor, and Brigham Young took over. Because we can't blame Smith for what happened at Mountain Meadows Massacre.
No, no, Smith was dead and gone by then. And that's why I said Brigham Young used that as an excuse to be what he wanted to actually be.
And to ramp up the saints, as the Mormons like to call themselves, to all the Gentiles out there. God, I hate referring to non-Mormons as Gentiles. But they still do it.
Yeah. When we were growing up, we were told that we were saints because we had the good fortune of being born into the Mormon church or finding it if you were a convert.
Or being born to parents who converted.
But yeah. Yeah, I'm in the boat too. But But yeah, and this is also something else that Brigham Young was kind of also slightly obsessed with as well. He liked the idea of Mosaic law. Joseph Smith again started that idea, but Brigham Young actually is the one who completely and fully executed like how that would work. He was very much an eye for an eye kind of a guy, and very much into, if you've done something wrong and I can get away with killing you or having somebody else do it so that I don't look bad, I will have it done.
And that yes, that will figure in later to this story.
And yeah,
Up on the Mormon.
and they were very obsessed. He was very obsessed. He and Joseph Smith both were very obsessed with the gathering of Israel, and they fancied themselves Jews that were lost because after Jerusalem got sacked, a lot of the Jewish people were scattered around the globe, and they very much fancied themselves having Jewish heritage, whether they had any or not.
Yes. All right, I need to do this again. It's Joseph Smith.
Yeah, but moving on, this is the kind of things that kind of the environment and the attitudes that helped lead into what happened with the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
Is what we're getting at, because I know Linda is asking questions in the chat. This is the environment that we're trying to set up.
Yeah. And basically, what Brigham Young was trying to do, the Utah War, was ramp up the Saints and put them on war footing to get the U.S. government to back down. As Sally Denton suggests, he didn't want actual bloodshed, oddly enough. But when the Fancher-Baker party, the party that was massacred, settled or just rested in Utah, they were expecting a fairly warm welcome, and up until like sometime in August, that's what they got. But then the church started telling them, it's like, don't give these people supplies, they're an advanced invasion force, which is ridiculous because it was a wagon train. They were headed to California. Satan, basically.
Yeah.
And there was an event called the Utah War. Just to be clear, I mean, not being from Utah, I don't know a lot about the history. I remember my scout leader going over about it because apparently he had some ancestor that was involved in it, that Brigham Young said he was one of the most evil men he'd ever met. And I mean, coming from it now as I do, I have to think it's like, if Brigham Young is calling you one of the most evil men you've ever met, that's an achievement.
He must have been a really good guy.
Huh?
He must have been a really great guy. But yeah.
Yeah, and he was also, well, from what I understand, the Indian policy in those cases, they weren't trading with the Indians and were just getting on war footing with them, too, because Paiute Indians had no problem with the Mormons. Hello, Critical Cripple.
Yeah, pretty much at that point, Brigham was like, I just want to be able to be left alone to my own devices. We are going to go to war. I don't want us selling anything. I don't want us, he's like, try to keep your communications and interactions with people down to a minimum. Because basically, like, he knew that if he got interference from any outside forces, he would not be able to rule the way that he wanted to rule.
With an iron fist.
He knew that eventually fighting would come back again, even if he didn't instigate it or go looking for it. He knew, based on what happened in Missouri and other places, that people around them were going to get pissed off and try to intervene.
Which is why one of the reasons Salt Lake City is set up in a valley that's easily defensible. Or would have been at the time. He also developed a theocracy in Utah, which the US government did not like. Now, there are some Go ahead. Yeah, that... Well, some... Sorry, go. Well, Denton mentions that the wagon train, the Fancher Baker party, did not intend to go through Utah originally, but they saw some ads from the Mormons themselves advertising, great feeding spaces, great places to trade, and they took a more northerly route because they didn't plan to take that way. Had they stuck to their original route, the Mountain Meadows Massacre probably never would have happened because they never would have gone through Utah.
And you have to remember, Utah is extremely developed now, and they've done a lot of irrigation and stuff. But at the time, you basically had like a crap ton of desert and then Salt Lake City.
And Provo.
And Provo. But I mean, that basically almost the entire state was uncivilized at that point. So if the Mormons didn't want to sell to you and you were in Utah, you pretty much were going to get screwed if you ran out of supplies.
And basically, eventually, the Fancher Baker party was led into the Mountain Meadows as a place where they could rest before moving on. Now, during the embargo on trading with any of the invaders from... what's the word I'm looking for? There's some word Brigham Young used. Can't remember. The Satan-inspired invaders who were about to take down the Mormons' way of life. There were people who actually risked the wrath of Young to bring supplies because there were children with this party that were heading westward. And like most wagon trains, Fancher and Baker, the leaders of the party, decided that they weren't going to take people who were chronic complainers because they wanted to keep the morale of the train up. So we can assume it's probably a pretty hardy people like the Utahns themselves were back then, who settled, or rather not settled, who went into the Mountain Meadows in late 1856 because their goal was to actually hit what would later become the Donner Pass for reasons that are well known before the nasty snowstorms hit and get it into California. 57, sorry. And they also thought they'd be able to trade with the Indians because the Mormons weren't selling to them and the Indians didn't really have any beef with them because they weren't settling there. Well, the Indians were afraid of risking the wrath of the Mormons. As it turns out, for good reason. I mean, I would not be surprised if that's the type of faith-promoting rumor that the church is known to drag up now and then, like the temple garment rumors. It does sound like something that might have circulated just to try to whip up the faithful.
That is part of the Mormon MO, is like, if is anything to feed into the persecution complex or the we're at war or oh no, people are being led away. They will start something, not directly, but they'll indirectly kind of insinuate so that people who are trained to pick up on those things will actually pick up on them, whether they subconsciously or consciously realize that they will pick up on
I need to be switching the focus because it's been on me and it doesn't need to be. But you mean the Mormons were saying that, or? I mean, the Fancher Baker party had plenty of cows and oxen with it. I'm not going to credit that one, but yeah, the Mormons did take the cows and some of the children afterwards. I think it was more Brigham Young whipping them up into an anti-immigrant sentiment, much like the jackass in the Oval Office is doing. But I don't think the Mormons were after their cows. I really think it's just like, oh, they're going to take us over. We want to live our life our own way without interference from the government. And Brigham Young also knew it was going to be replaced as territorial governor. Because James Buchanan did not like Young's practice of polygamy.
Yeah. Like, honestly, outside of the Mormons, who did like the practice of polygamy? Like, people don't realize this. Polygamy is the way polygamy was done for Mormonism is nothing even remotely close to what polyamory looks like between adults.
Oh, just as a side note, Source the Skeptic, if you ever watch this, I would like to bring you on because I want a polyamorist with us when we discuss polygamy, because I want someone to clear up the differences. Okay, I've been trying to get in touch with you.
There are definitely differences between what is a healthy polyamorous relationship and what Joseph Smith and Brigham Young and all of the brethren were doing. They were basically treating women like property, and if you were a teenager, you were considered a woman.
But that can be fun in a BDSM never mind. Let's keep this family friendly.
No! Okay, first of all, in BDSM, there's consent and it's adult.
It's role play. It's a difference. It's not.
Yes, and it's role play. You can pretend to be a child. That is fine. I got no issue with that. I have issue with what actually happened in polygamy.
Critical Cripple, it's not that we wouldn't have you on. It's just that I'm trying to get someone who is at least a fairly well-known name with some of the audience we're trying to go for to clear up 2X Mormons who don't necessarily have the cleanest perceptions of polyamory because of polygamy in the first place.
Yeah.
Also,
But yeah, that also played into the United States not really liking Brigham Young as well.
yeah. And
Go ahead,
Critical
Alana.
brought up that they were Pauling in the chat, so. Yeah, Well, Lee was also the adopted son of Brigham Young. So there was a warm relationship between them for many years. But as tensions heightened, eventually the Mormons put the Fancher Baker party under siege. Not let anyone in, anyone out. And that lasted for 3 days. The siege pretty much was the attack. I mean, there were shots exchanged during the whole thing, but the Fancher Baker party had military members with it, as most wagon trains would, because people were just settling and the escort was useful going across the trails. But the thing is, when you're being starved out, like the Mormons were doing to the Fancher Baker party, you're not going to be the most effective fighter. And it seems like on the last day before the actual event known as the Massacre happened, the Fancher Baker party just tried to appeal to the humanity of the Mormons by sending out 2 just little girls in white dresses. Now, they were hoping these little girls would be able to come back with water. They weren't armed, they just had buckets. The Mormons shot them. Well, this Sally Denton mentioned it. I would like more confirmation on that, if anyone has it, please. Because I only have one book from the library.
Because there's actually differing stories for multiple reasons. One, the church does a really good job of covering up its history to its members. So even if its membership heard about it, they would either not have all of the information or have enough information to do a faith promoting, like, this is what really happened. It wasn't really all that bad.
Or
and then you have
into the anti-Mormon lies.
Yeah, and then you have other people who have gone like seriously in depth and like looked at as many sources as possible, tried to weed out. But with all the lies that the Mormon Church created, I wouldn't be surprised that even if somebody did their due diligence, they might get some of the facts wrong.
Sadiqa Ibawai. Oh, well. There were no Indians involved in the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
No, that part, there were no Native Americans involved at all.
In
that
fact,
part we know is the truth.
No.
No. They just used them as an excuse.
They tried
Even the Mormon Church admits that now. Even the Mormon Church admits there were no Native Americans involved.
If you're just going to hit yourself with the book, just do it. Well, it's not like we're going to get monetized anytime soon. By the way, subscribe to these 2 girls' channel.
Nope. Even the Mormon Church.
Well, yeah,
backed on
Native. It is the Mormons' fault that there were rumors about the Native Americans doing it. That's right. When was this book published? All right, it's got to be someone who's consulting Mormon sources from earlier than that, because no, the Native Americans.
No, even the Mormon Church admitted that year that they.
I'm just
Okay,
saying
yeah.
they're probably using earlier Mormon sources because the Mormons did try to scapegoat the Paiute Indians. Why am I calling them Indians? Paiute tribe. Yeah, well, the Mormon Church had to admit some culpability because of a terrible movie called September Dawn.
Yeah, they did at least admit the part that they blamed the Native Americans, but they were like, oh, but anybody that was operating in that siege didn't have anything to do with us. They were rogue. They didn't, they just got the wrong ideas and went off and did their own thing. But it wasn't the Native Americans. They didn't even say sorry. They were just like, we blame the Native Americans. But it's still like somebody else's fault that this happened.
The thing is, the Paiutes and other I'm not sure what to call them, the indigenous groups that witnessed the event, told everyone who asked them, it's like, it was the Mormons. But no one believed them. Some of the Mormons were dressed up as Indians, but there weren't Indians there. Sorry, Native Americans. Well, the one...
One day, Lara, we need to go over the gospel topics essays and be like, here's how they admit the truth, but put like a nice, pretty spin on it so that you think it's not that bad.
All right.
Like,
I want to... Well, yeah. Also...
Yeah. That's what happened to poor Alanis. She got pulled in.
We need to...
It's not your fault.
We need to get back to the siege here. On the final day, John D. Lee waved the flag of came in under a white flag of truce to try to negotiate the terms of surrender of the party. The desperate party gave in, but there were people in the party itself who basically were telling him, was like, fool, if you do this, you sign your death warrant. Now, coming in under a flag of truce is something where you expect not to have everyone shot except for those who can't tell stories. But someone reminded John D. Lee to follow orders and to do his duty. So John D. Lee then gave the orders to start systematically executing the members of the Fancher Baker wagon train. They had given up their arms beforehand and had a reasonable expectation to be taken someplace safe. I don't even think this is in question historically, so... You did. You did. Mm-hmm. And children. Oh, bullshit. Sorry.
Nope.
It sounds like a similar story to what I read, so. And I read through, but no, the Mormons were going to do whatever Brigham Young told them to do.
Yeah.
Or what I can reasonably assume
And
Brigham Young might have told them to do, because one of the biggest mysteries about the whole affair is how involved was Brigham Young? Uh-huh. And of course a Mormon's going to tell you that. The book I read doesn't give mention, they just say, when John D. Lee was finally brought to justice many years later after living in exile and after being excommunicated from the Mormon Church because Brigham Young finally used him as a scapegoat, that
my thing
he
is
refused to implicate Brigham Young.
my thing is that, and I kind of mentioned this earlier about how there is all kinds of there's the way the Mormon Church has things set up is the prophet can be heard. The prophet gives his instructions, and in Mormon religion, when the prophet speaks, it is as if God is speaking. It's ingrained in the culture, even though they're trying to get away from that. So the prophet can give instructions either indirectly or directly, but you cannot go and talk beyond anybody higher up than your local leadership.
Yeah,
So if you have a problem at church and you go to the bishop and you don't like what the bishop says, you can go to the next person on the chain, but that's where that stops. So what the church does is the church teaches its members, oh, well, it teaches its members to completely follow the prophet, but then we'll go, and then when anything comes up, they'll say, oh, it was a local matter, or, oh, it's a local decision.
well,
Like, we don't interfere locally,
but
even though they give instructions from the top down.
That's more of a modern thing, considering the church was very small at this time. Brigham Young pretty much was a local leader.
That is true.
And this is very
but
much...
But it's a similar mentality of well, I am in charge, but it's still somebody else's fault. That mentality was at a smaller scale, but it's still that mentality.
I think that figure is correct. I don't think that figure is disputed.
Yeah. I thought it was 150, but it might be 120. It's somewhere around that range.
All right, there's a warning I want to give whenever you're reading anything about Mormon history, and it's something you're just going to have to deal with when it comes to controversial groups like the Mormons. You have to learn to distinguish between what the Mormons are telling you to make the church look good, what people are saying, making up just to make the church look bad, and what real things happened that do make the church look bad that the church is trying to cover up.
Yeah. And that's why I say that even if a book is trying to be 100% truthful, because there was so much cover up and so many things, like so much hidden, that even somebody who's not trying to do a faith promoting version might get a couple of the details wrong anyways. Just although I have a feeling, Alanis, you got your hands on a faith promoting version of the book.
Yeah.
Or of the events.
Who published it? Okay, that's reasonable. I was going to say, if it said Deseret Books, I'm going to come...
Hey, what's the copyright? Is it Intellectual Reserve? Just curious. Who owns the copyright?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Should we promote this on nextmormon.org?
I didn't know, probably.
It might be interesting what we have to
maybe
say.
just to let people in the audience know, if the copyright says intellectual reserve,
It's the
it is
Mormon
not
Church.
to be trusted because the Mormon Church owns intellectual reserve properties. It is a subsidiary of the corp. Okay.
All right, we don't have
All
to
right.
go to Alanis' house and beat her with her book.
But yeah, if it's by intellectual reserve, don't trust it.
Or Bookcraft.
Don't. Yeah.
Yes, and eventually the news got into the greater public. You know, the public was clamoring for an investigation, and this is... The country's about to go into the Civil War, which will delay things even further, and eventually people will just forget about the thing and go on to other things, but... Brigham Young launches an official investigation that claims the Indians did. Well, his wording is the Indians did it, the Native Americans did it. The Native Americans, of course, deny it, but no one cares what the Native American tribes have to say at the time. And
still don't, actually, which is sad.
Now chartering disabled trans women living into the Trump administration. Fortunately, I'm loudmouthed and opinionated, and you can watch me on YouTube. Well, the Mormons claimed that they had to recover these children from the... I know there are several different groups. I know collectively they're the Paiutes, but basically the Ute Indians from Utah, from which Utah takes its name.
They had to. I think honestly that they kept some of those children alive so that they could create a storyline, or at least they were like, you know what, we should keep some of these children just because.
Actually,
we can convert them and make them Mormon.
I think it was, as her book suggests, they actually did. The people who committed the massacre did somewhat break with their orders because they didn't feel good about killing children. Who would?
Yeah.
Not only were they killing them, they were killing them in cold blood. Or at least that's what the orders were. So they just decided, it's like, okay, we're going to let the ones that aren't old enough to tell stories essentially live. Telltale?
Oof.
Oh, not Telltale Atheist, just...
Yeah.
But the Mormons submitted compensation claims to the federal government for recovering these children whose parents they killed in front of them. I don't know about that. That's all I'm going to say. It could be true. Let me just say, given that there's a Mormon author in that book, I doubt it. But being Mormon doesn't make you a bad person. It just means you've got...
Some of us.
Why do I still have the Spaniard on?
Question things after a while. No, you're not allowed to die on this stream.
It just means
there's no dying on this stream.
that you fought You've either been born into a religion whose claims you should realize aren't true, and you may eventually, or you've been deceived. Seriously. How the heck did I do this? Yes, I know you're having fun watching me play with my keys, but... Yes. They were returned to their families where the families could be located. Not all the families could be located, and survivors of the family members tried to make guesses about which children belonged to which families based on facial features and other issues, and no, they did not all have father's nose. What is going on here? I'm gonna have to go the other way. Anyway, let's put my sunglasses back on. Must have the hat. Yes. And that was John Doyle Lee. Well, the thing is, John happened in 1870s. Long after the event took place. Oh, at Mountain Meadows. Well, the thing is, essentially what John Doyle Lee did was a war crime. It would be a war crime today. And not only that, he essentially did something that no civilized person does. You don't violate the flag of truce. But the thing is, almost everyone suspects if Brigham Young didn't at least order the massacre, he very much knew it was going to happen and approved of it. We have the humor thing too. I'm sorry, Morton Nielsen says we have the humor thing too. What's the humor thing? That was actually just me being... just the keys bugging me, but... Yes, we do occasionally joke around here. For example, see our thing about the little factory. Dwindling in Disbelief 3, Sweaty Boys, and whatever Alana's titled it. Mine will say featuring Godless Engineer. Yeah. It was his choice. Like, he had 3 choices. Beheading, death by firing squad, which oddly enough Utah still has last I checked, and hanging, the old, traditional Western style of execution. We're seeing what? I'm just seeing her look at you confused. Can you hear us now? All right. I can't hear Tria Tail. Is she speaking?
Hey,
Okay,
can
there we
y'all
go.
hear me? Okay. The mic dropped for no reason, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I don't think.
All right. But yes, initially Brigham Young just told him to, first of all, the church excommunicated him because they were making it clear. It's like, you're going to take the fall for this. Because remember, if the prophet tells you to do something that's wrong, you do it anyway and you'll be blessed. So, who wants to bring Kent Hovindal?
Oh.
No.
Mm-mm. I do want to bring up. I do want to bring up though that in 2007, the Mormon Church was. I don't know what the reasoning behind it was or why they chose to do it, but they kind of had, I guess, a press conference of sorts where they admitted some fault in the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
My guess that was because of September Dawn.
Okay. And they basically said, well, it wasn't the Indians, but it wasn't the Native Americans, but it was, a bunch of people who didn't, who didn't have authorization, but they were Mormon, and things happened, and this is our spin on it. But here's the thing: they issued that press release, but part of what they said, and I can't remember the exact quote, but they basically said the Mormon Church doesn't apologize for anything it does. And that is an actual policy within the Mormon Church, is if they do harm, they don't apologize.
Aha, got it.
Ever.
Sorry.
And they will blame anybody but the prophet, anybody but the church leadership. If something happens in the Mormon Church, it's either an outsider's fault or it's like your lowly member's fault. It is never, ever the prophet's fault, as far as they're concerned.
Boy, I am really glad I never told my dad I was trans until I was long away from him, because I would hate to have gone through Mormon aversion therapy. They were Mormon employees.
Bullshit. If you're getting paid, then you're gonna, most employers are not going to allow you to have a negative spin on something that they've done.
All right, since Kent Hovind, not Cunt Hovind, although I do love the fact that Aaron Ra does use that pronunciation now, it's being brought up in the chat. If Kent Hovind, Mr. Kent Hovind, or I will call him Pastor, I will not call him Doctor, wants to come on this channel, I will have a discussion with him about his knowledge of information technology. Because there are certain things I want to beat into his head that can and do happen. Not literally beat into his head, don't take it that way, I just mean. There are certain things he's gotten wrong.
But yeah.
Bishop.
There's actually historians. There's a group called the September 6th, and that's something that I'm going to bring up on my channel in the really not too distant future.
And something I wanted to bring up.
Of a bunch of historians who basically they were writing church history, and they said, hey, we found some things that we didn't know about, that there was a different spin on, and we kind of want to be honest about it. And basically the higher up said, you're not allowed to be honest about this. And they said, well, I'm sorry, but we're not doing this. And some of them wrote the actual truth and got excommunicated, and some got excommunicated for not following orders.
It's a bit more complicated than that, because the September 6th were a group of explicitly historians and feminist writers. There are other historians, like Fawn Brodie, who wrote the book No Man Knows My History about Joseph Smith, who were excommunicated for writing truthfully about the church history. And one of my favorite little factory apostles, Elder Boyd KKK Packer, now deceased, thank goodness, said in reference to the September 6th, not everything that is true is useful. Have I mentioned I hate this guy?
Oh yeah, and that's why I said people don't realize, because they say, okay, well, pastors think that they talk for God, and I'm like, not on the same level as the Mormon church. You do not understand. I heard the Rock and the Hat story while I was Mormon, and I had been trained to automatically just shove it to the back of my brain and not even think of it and be like, well, that's an anti-Mormon lie. I don't believe that.
It's not.
And then I leave the church and I find out, hey, all those anti-Mormon lies you were told? Guess what, honey?
A lot of them were true. Yep. But for years, the church said, we had nothing to do with this, we had nothing to do with this. And eventually, there was a public clamor. It's like, hey, someone has to be held accountable for this. So eventually, the church leaders got together, including Brigham Young, and said, who's going to be our scapegoat? And that came down to John Doyle Lee, Brigham Young's adopted son. And Brigham Young told him, it's like, go into the Colorado River in Nevada, where Utah warrants won't apply, and just live out your days there. And he was told, it's like, I promise you'll be safe as long as you obey the commandments. And he lived there for years and eventually got into his old age, opened something called Lee's Ferry. And when he did Lee's Ferry, he made quite a living off of that, but eventually was arrested by, I think it was the U.S. military, and taken to stand trial. Now, he was actually given a Mormon lawyer at the time, because the Mormons wanted to make sure he didn't implicate Brigham Young in any way. Who eventually just go and had to use his lawyer in Nevada. And when he did go to the lawyer in Nevada, he gave several different confessions with conflicting accounts. But he never fully implicated Brigham Young in any of them. And when he was shot, he actually chose to wear his temple garments and use some symbolism that the Mormon members would understand, where his blood was being spilled. That's also why he didn't choose beheading, because beheading was one way to atone. That would imply he did something wrong. And if you're a faithful Mormon, which Lee was for most of his life, even until his death, up until his death, when he finally just renounced Young and said, he realized he was just being betrayed, essentially, by the organization he trusted. God, I hate it when I forget what I say.
Okay, so beheading would have implied that he did something wrong.
Yeah.
Getting shot would imply that he still was...
That basically his defense would boil down to a defense that would later be used during the Nuremberg trials that didn't work there either. I was only following orders.
Was only following orders. Well, to be honest, if he hadn't been shot, he probably would have died anyways. Because Brigham Young had a mob group that he had control over.
Yeah, he was actually a Danite himself.
Yeah, he was a Danite himself. So he basically had the option of being executed by the government or whatever the Danites, the mob group, had in store for him, the Mormon mob group. Oh, yeah.
They're the Mormon Mafia.
Yeah, thugs that... Yeah, the Mormon Mafia, the thugs that basically execute Brigham Young's every order. And Joseph Smith's too, but it was worse at Brigham Young's time.
And before you get the idea that this is something that still exists, the Danites don't exist anymore.
No, the Danites don't exist anymore. They're a defunct group. Mormons prefer now psychological torture to anything physical because it looks better and they can get away with it.
Oh no, electroshock aversion therapy actually happened during my lifetime. Possibly atheist T-girls too, but I don't think yours. Yeah,
probably not mine, but that's still not the preference though. Like they will in cases of they don't do aversion therapy anymore, I don't think. But they do
electroshock
reparative
therapy anymore.
No, I was about to say that they still do reparative therapy, and that's still horrible, terrible torture. And again, that's not physical torture; that is mental torture. The Mormon Church, if the Mormon Church could get away with physical torture again, you can bet they'd go back to it, though. Is what I'm getting at.
But throughout this whole thing, if you read any book on it, even the one Alanis chose, which seems to have been written by commission of the church, which, I'm going to be honest, I'm not surprised that they would pull something as low as that to try to whitewash their history, essentially.
Yeah. That's typical. I mean, even the Gospel Topics essays where they were like, yes, we admit these parts, they still put like a pretty little fancy spin on it.
Oh.
Which... It's really interesting to watch from the outside. It's kind of scary as well.
All right, I want to run something by the Three Lamanite crew here. That's what I'm calling us now, the Three Lamanites. Tria Tail gets the reference even if you don't know on us. You are now. You're one of the Three Lamanites. We're condemned to outer darkness when Jesus visited America.
Yeah, Lara and I are the only people going to hell, which is really funny. Although you can come visit us.
They don't have the normal concept of hell. They have a place called Outer Darkness, which you can only get to if you were a Mormon, essentially.
Yeah.
Only if you really believe.
We have no, Alanis, we're going to break out and drag you with us. That's how that's going to work.
We'll bring Aaron Raw with us. He'll be down there with us. We'll bring Aaron Raw with us. He'll be down there too.
My friend Catastrophe was like, we were coming home the other day, and she was like, if we die, I'm dragging you to Catholic purgatory with me because there's no way in hell I'm going to be there by myself. So we have plans for breakouts, like figuring out which version of hell we like. So
Hey, I plan on
you're
fighting my
one
way
of
into
us. You're
Valhalla.
stuck. Ooh, that sounds fun.
Because eternal feasting and mead sound a lot better to me than being the heart of some guy's harem. Oh, I actually asked you, but I want to do it on a channel called The Three Lamanites. I want to give the New Mormon Book of Mormon videos the Mystery Science Theater 3000 treatment.
Oh
Where
yeah.
we just go like the 40-minute episodes and mock them.
I'm in. Hey, can we do the old versions too?
Oh yes, we have to do the cartoon versions first.
Oh yeah, the cartoons were. Oh god, that's the stuff of nightmares.
We'll do them in chronological order, and we'll start with the Book of Ether first.
Oh no, that's great.
There's a book in the Book of Mormon called Ether, and yes, it's
also a drug.
I don't know if
I'm not uncertain that Joseph Smith wasn't on some form of drugs at some point during some of these stories.
I happen to think certain things. There are plenty of books in the Bible that put me to sleep with names that do that, like Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, Jesus Christ Superstar.
Entire Book of Mormon.
One of those might not be in the Bible, I'm not sure.
Sorry, we got derailed.
So, let's start. Take my sunglasses off. Hopefully I'll be able to fix my regular glasses soon. Any questions left from the chat? I would like to make the Three Lamanites thing just like a weekly feature, but we have to record it beforehand.
I cannot necessarily show up weekly on the same day every week.
That's why.
But if I know beforehand, what day and time we're doing, I can rearrange things to fit.
We have to record it beforehand.
Yeah.
And secondly, we have to show Alanis the first. Actually, I did link Alanis the first one and said it's like they're making Jerusalem 600 BC seem like a really rockin' place here.
Yeah. All right.
So, do you have any guys have anything coming up on your channels?
Yes.
Oh yes.
I have multiple things coming up. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on Diana, the 11 Ladies channel, to talk about whether or not genital preference is transphobic after somebody did a really, really bad mess of a tweet on Twitter. I don't know if we're going to actually stick to that topic or
Rachel
derail
McKinnon?
Into... Yes.
I have no idea what she was trying to say. I wanted to do that for... Sorry, go ahead.
I do. I kind of do. I buy that she chose specific wording to be inflammatory and in order to get people riled up. Because she's a PhD and she knows the effects that certain kinds of words have. And then the way she backpedaled and beat around the bush.
Well, PhD doesn't necessarily mean you're well versed in language.
And anyways, and then after that,
bush?
I'm going to attempt.
I didn't think you had the surgery yet. All right, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm going to attempt to stream tomorrow, but it may go the same way the stream did the other time because my mic is still acting up. And then I have my anniversary of leaving the church coming up in a couple of weeks, and then ACE Awareness Week. I'm doing multiple streams on that. So,
all right.
Yes, I'm thinking of calling it the House of Diva Evil Y stream, just because. Either that or it's going to be Spooky Mormon Hell. One of the two. It is Halloween season, so I might go with the spooky theme. But anyways, that's what I'm doing on my channel.
Okay, you, Alanis? It isn't Weston, is it? Oh, go to Google Translate.
Oh, no!
No, I am your father. Just read it in Darth Vader's voice. I've had a kidney stone, it does. Oh, well, I can't say I know exactly, but having a kidney stone is the closest you can get if you don't have the anatomy to being pregnant and to giving birth. Okay.
Yeah. I have words about that whole thing. Not towards you, Alanis. But
Alright, I guess it's my turn. Actually, I really haven't had any video projects coming up because I've been doing Linux administration stuff and trying to search for a job, which is why I've been pushing the donation stuff. Because apparently, for those of you who don't know, Book of Eli is not a Mormon book, Linda Nielsen, but it would be better than most of the Mormon scriptures that do exist. Because I lost my job after trying to catch a dish and stubbing my toe in the dishwasher. Which is, honestly, I don't quite understand why that would lead to me being told I'm not needed there anymore, but I hated the job. So, in the meantime, getting skills in, I've set up a Minecraft server, which I've been pushing. It's sinisterporpoise.com. I have set up some mods on it, so now you can set home. There are some actually moderators as well, so we can ban homophobic, aphobic, and transphobic people now. Easily. Without having to do some Linux administration stuff. And I have a mind test server, and I was going to say I'm planning on going over to the local gaming store and seeing if I can get some Star Wars X-Wing in. But one of the things I would like to do, if I can get some help for it, is I don't know if any of you know what Steve McRae did recently that's caused controversy and rippled throughout the atheist community. Sounds like it's going to be the next Essence of Thought thing, but in this case, he brought... Go ahead. Please don't use that terminology, because one of them is gay. Because then you're going to make me wonder which one was the bottom. And I just don't want that imagery. It's not about the channel, that's long gone. He brought on someone named Earl David Warden, who's on the Texas Sex Offender Registry. Now, when people tried to alert him to this, he's like, I know what it was drama. Now, as it came out, he claimed it was a Romeo and Juliet thing where it was just like a statutory rape kind of thing, which sometimes those laws don't make much sense. But it turns out this guy had misused a police car, pretended to be a police officer, and kidnapped a woman, then raped her. So apparently now there's a bunch of dude bros in the atheist community, which honestly I kind of agree with Objectively Subjective on this. Is this if this is the kind of stuff they're going to do, I don't want to be a part of it. Who are arguing over. It didn't go well, but it didn't go like that. We're now arguing over whether or not Steve McRae is a rape apologist, hosting debates on it. I want to do a video, better edited rather than the Periscope one I did, basically saying, hey, this is really stupid, you don't host debates about stuff like this, regardless of whether you're giving the money to a charity dealing with sexual assault or not. Because whether most people realize it or not, a lot of women have been victims of sexual assault, not as bad as what David Earl Warren did, but just debating over whether someone's... Just having a debate like that just brings back old traumas. It's not productive in any way. I tried to bring it up on the Modern Day Debate channel, but they're like, we prefer not to... Anyway, it's... I guess the entire thing would be... Tria.
It was a mess. Also, something that I want to bring up, scientist Mel had been invited onto a stream with, I think, that same person, and she said no, and then she got guilted and shamed because she wouldn't forgive the guy for...
Red's Rhetoric? It was Red's Rhetoric who had the debate.
I don't remember the full story. I just know that Scientist Mel was invited on one of Non Sequitur Show's debates. They have several different channels, several different groups within that.
You mean the Great Debate Community?
Things. Yeah, and it was through Kyle and Steve. It was Kyle and Steve. Kyle and Steve were involved somehow. And
are you sure it was both
she
of them?
was shamed for not wanting to come on and talk to this guy because with the excuse of, oh well, we believe he's redeemed and he's nice to us, so why not come on?
Earl David
and
Gordon?
Then their channel, like in the chat, started like shaming Mel for not wanting to come on and saying crappy things.
No, we don't want a video of you going to the restroom. Let us know whether it's the male or female restroom. As if we care. All right. So, we'll see you now from 2 Saturdays from now. If we can get the 3 Lamanites thing going. I don't know when that will be, but the first one will be Lehi and his family leave Jerusalem.
Yeah. Because that's...
I'll have to see if I can find the old Book of Mormon cartoons. All right.
Check hard to find Mormon videos, but see y'all later.
And as always, so long, and thanks for all the fish. All right, we're out.